So I'm here today with Laurie Handlers, and oh my gosh, Laurie is my hero. So really, really, I came across Laurie's work because I was listening to a podcast with Omer Pani, who's also featured, and I learned about you, Laurie, and your adventure, and then I've read your books. And I had to include you in this. So thank you for being here. Lori has been teaching Tantra for decades. And honestly, okay, so Lori, you don't know this, but I have said to so many people, this is who I want to be when I grow up. So I am just thrilled to have your perspective. So yeah, thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much, Dawn. It's my pleasure to be here. And yeah, I didn't know all that. So it warms my heart.
Oh, I'm so glad.
Yeah.
So as we dive in, right, I'm pretty familiar with your work, but I think a lot of the people watching and listening won't be. So, my understanding is that you discovered Tantra in your 40s, right?
I was 46.
You were 46. That is how old I am now,
Oh,
which
great.
is, I think, part of the excitement. So, can you tell us how did you discover this path and what about it grabbed you so deeply?
Well, I think I was very precocious as a child. I liked my body. I liked to explore my body, and I did. And my mother, that became a source of concern for my mother and my grandmother. And I remember my grandmother saying to my mother, she's going to be in trouble when she's in high school. This girl can't be controlled, which is great. I love that they knew that early on. Um, so in the era that I was growing up, like girls weren't supposed to know anything about sex. We weren't supposed to say we liked something or we didn't like something because if we said we liked it, then it meant that we were slutty because we had been around. So there was this incredible double standard of I was interested in sex. I want to know everything. I'm the girl that, like, if the boys were saying some term and the boy athletes in my high school were like standing against the wall by the cafeteria, I would say, what does that mean? And then they would tell me what it would mean. And I would run to the girls' locker room and I would tell everybody, I just learned this. This is what it means. So that I was like the sex ed person telling all the girls. Anyway, rolling forward. So inside, I always knew there was more to body embodiment, body exploration than anyone was saying. And mostly I was frightening my mother. And then I had sex, for the first time, like actual sexual intercourse when I was 18. And I thought, I waited for this. Like, this is it.
Yeah.
What a letdown. It was so not what I thought it was going to be. Like, why would they prevent me and say this was so special and you had to save it for marriage and all these things when it wasn't that great? Or maybe the person I chose, well, my first sexual experience was horrible. And so I knew there, in the times that I had like some solid relating to somebody, I would say, let's talk about this. Let's go deep. Let's talk about the connection that we're having. And they would look at me, these guys would look at me and go like, she's weird. This girl's weird. She wants to talk about it. And I didn't have anyone to talk to about it. And then in 1986, I read an article that was about Margot Anand, who's a famous Tantra teacher. And I said, this is it. This is what I've been looking for. It was in the Yoga Journal. And then, but there was no internet. So I didn't know how to find her. I didn't know how to find these classes that seemed like what I had been looking for my whole life. So I waited another 10 years and then I was working at Landmark Education and that was disembodied. Like that was everything up here was good. All the distinctions were heady. Even the seminars that had to do with the body didn't have to do with the body. And my body broke down. And when I resigned from my position, right away someone said to me, there's a tantra class coming to Silver Spring, Maryland, because I lived in Washington, D.C. And she said, I think you should go to it. You're a mess. Your body is broken down, whatever. You should probably go to this class. And so I went. It was like, at last, 1996, I found it. And the first day in that class, I went, this is my life. This is so what I've been looking for. This is so everything that I've been looking for. And I never looked back. I mean, that was just, it was serendipitous.
Yeah. That's amazing. Thank you
Yeah.
for that. So one of the things that I'm curious about, given that, I mean, you said this is my life. Something that you talk about quite a bit in Sex and Happiness, It Gets Better with Age, is how important your continued exploration around vitality is. And what I'm curious about is how those conversations intersected, like to find this conversation around sensuality and sexuality, and how was that part of the path to claiming vitality and aging, or were they kind of parallel tracks?
It's great. I don't know how to answer that. Let's see. I both worlds have not, they haven't exactly meshed. So when I was really a lot in the world of super longevity, the community I was with were afraid of sexuality um, for a lot of reasons, and yeah, they were just afraid. But they kept coming to classes with me and whatever. Like everybody wanted embodiment. But who doesn't want embodiment? I mean, once they know about it, but some people, were brought up religiously or whatever to be afraid of their body, like their body is sinful, all the shame that they hold is carried in the body. And so it takes a lot for some people to break out of that. However, they did have me. I spoke at two huge conferences called RADFest, Revolution Against Aging and Death Festival, and I spoke on sex and longevity. I made two, they were like TED Talks, two 10 and 15-minute presentations about how your sexuality and my sexuality enhances the quality of life and can extend our lives through the cocktails that are released in the body by being sexually stimulated. I also talked about robots. I mean, I really talked about the future. I talked about people who are lonely. If they could afford a robot, they could buy one and the robot would never say no. I talked about, I gave them people the clue to sex magic. I said, look, if you're spending all this money on supplements and NAD plus treatments and far-reaching red infrared, far-reaching red infrared light and all these things, you might want to practice sex magic. And I didn't say it in those terms because I figured that would scare people. So I said, if you set your intention before a sexual encounter, and then at the moment of climax or orgasm, you speak the intention, which is possibly to live forever, or to live to 150, or to live to 200, or whatever, you could be programming yourself through your creative life force, which is your sexual energy. I got a standing ovation both times. I mean, I think people came out of their wheelchairs even who were
Oh,
differently
great.
abled. I mean, it was dark, the stage had stage lighting, but I could see shadows of people standing up. So that's on the one side, that's interesting. And then so it was received, not received, it went back and forth kind of. It's always tenuous when people are talking about sexuality, like so many people are closeted and afraid. On the other side, in my teaching one of my teaching positions where I teach for International School of Temple Arts, ISTA, there's in the level 2 course there are death rituals and there are killing of the ego and things. And that my community there also didn't accept that I said I was an immortalist. I don't know, I'm losing my words today. I said I was an immortalist, that I didn't want to die. They were like, well, how could you be part of this if you don't want to die? And I went, I would kill my ego anytime, but physically, if I look like this and I feel like this, why do I want to go anywhere? Where are we going anyway? I'm not having this romanticized notion of what happens after death. Like, I feel like that's just a ploy. And so it's funny how both my loves they come together in me, but they didn't come together in my various communities. They were both threatened by the notion of either or.
I didn't realize that. Thank you for sharing. So
Yeah.
that
That's
really
why I wrote, that's part of why I wrote the book, to include it all. Like I wrote that book to say, look, if you feel good and you look good and you want to be healthy and stay alive, here are the practices that super longevity people use. Things like, don't get into routines, like break your routines and bust things up and try new things and keep pushing your edges and your envelope, because if you start to get these routines, you start to get like a curmudgeon. You start to close in.
yes. Yes, we see that so much in medicine. So, okay, Lori, I have two questions for you based on what you just
Yeah,
shared, and I'm just going to throw them both out there so you can
sure.
dance with them. One is, you mentioned these two loves that didn't really coalesce well, but within you they do. And I'd love to hear how, in your personal experience, your relationship to your sensuality and sexuality has influenced your commitment to aliveness. Because it's not just longevity, like I want to live a long time. What I really appreciate about you is your commitment to vitality as you continue to explore the love of living. The other thing that I want to hear, because I imagine it would be related, is how you have navigated not feeling supported by these communities that you love. And I'm asking because I see so many people either pursuing a new relationship with their own sexuality or a new relationship with health and vitality and confronting the aloneness of not being, supported by their community. So how have you navigated that?
Oh my God, that's such a tough question. I mean, to me, I just didn't. I'm the way I am and have always been in my life is unstoppable. Like if I wanted something, or I wanted to find out about something or pursue something or whatever it was, it didn't matter to me if my parents were against it or if my school was against it or whatever it was. My friends were against it. Like I did it anyway. I'm I set the trends rather than being somebody who's following the trends. So that's how I am. So I mean, I'm just naturally like that. So when they didn't coalesce, I just pursued them both anyway. Like I just ignored the criticisms or whatever. I kept following my own path and carving out my own path and not being too influenced by one or the other. Like in my super longevity community, I'm not with my that community anymore. That's for other reasons, but in that community, I just kept doing what I was doing, and I was a good enough community participant that, you know, I got some criticism from time to time, but I didn't pay attention to it. I'm not influenced tremendously by authority figures. Like they all have their foibles, including myself. So I just can't, it's like, okay, I'll
Do you
take the
feel the same
smorgasbord part
way?
that I'll take the
Yeah.
part that I want, but I will leave the rest. Like I don't eat all foods and I won't eat this.
Yeah.
And the same thing in my tantra and sacred sexuality community. I mean, I'm still a tremendously active part. of sa the sacred sexuality, and we've received criticism from the inside, from the outside. I mean, there's all kinds of things. There's all kinds of politics, and I'm still going strong. I do what I want. I don't answer particularly to anybody else. I notice they don't really answer to me, so it makes it easier for me to not have to to fall in. And I feel like I'm doing really well. I feel like I'm very well respected by everyone, even if they don't agree with me. And sometimes they make fun of me. They make jokes like, we'll talk to Laura, she doesn't want to die. See what she says about this. And I just sign it on. I don't take it personally. I feel like it's their shortcoming, not mine.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think it's a
Thanks for
really
asking.
important perspective, right? Because like I said, so many people pursuing either, a new aspect of vitality or a new side of their own sexuality, are met with lack of support in a variety of ways, whether it's overt criticism or just, like my friends still drink beer and eat pizza. And if I don't do that anymore, where is my friend circle now? So I was just really curious about that
Yeah.
experience of community for you.
Yeah, it's good. Listen, when I started to teach, you mentioned Om. So when Om was my student, and he came to all my tantra classes, all my levels of tantra, and then he questioned it a lot. He was not an easy student, and then he got into like really. I always say that when we teach together, I go, he was my student. He was not easy, so don't give us an easy time. And then he got into kink. He calls me up and says, I'm going to this dark Odyssey thing. And I go, what are you nuts? And I had this whole take on what kink and BDSM was. And I made up stories in my head about people who want to be spanked, need to feel sensation. They need spanking in order to feel sensation. They don't feel. I had a whole track running in my mind about it. And then Om calls me and says, you should come to New York and have a session with me. And I'm like, why? He says, because I want to show you how the same thing you do in Tantra, you do eye gazing, and that puts people into a trance state and a state of bliss. I'm going to show you how spanking does that. And I'm like, okay, I'll come to New York. And so I did. I surrendered. I submitted to a session with him, and it was really good. It really opened my eyes to a sensation and to a whole set of possibilities that I didn't even know about. And then he calls me and says, we should teach together. And I go, I don't know about that. I was like, what's your idea? He goes, we should put BDSM together with Tantra. And I said, okay, I'll try it. Show me. And so we put together a curriculum. Mostly he designed it, and then we set out to teach it. And I got so much flack from people who had been my students, who totally trusted me, and my integrity, and they questioned, what are you doing with this course, the sensationalism of taking Tantra and putting it in the same sentence as BDSM, like it's sacrilegious, it's whatever it is. And I said, no, I learned something. I learned something amazing by us doing that course. I learned how people can strengthen their polarities and have a lot of chemistry and magnetism between them. And I learned shorthands for communicating pleasure and pain. And I learned all these things that I saw spiced up people's lives and gave them things they're looking for without damaging them or hurting them and so I kept going despite the criticism that I received. And
Wow.
I haven't stopped. I mean, Om, Ohms and my class is probably the most sold out, regularly pursued thing in anyone's year. I mean, we have to turn people away. And Yeah, it's a tremendous success. And I think Ohm asked me to do it with him because at the time he was unknown. Like no one knew who he was. And so I think this is what I think his motivation was. He figured if he teamed up with me, like he would instantly be launched. And it's true, it happened. And we've done 2 world tours and we've had sold out classes everywhere that we go. So yeah, I can't, it's the same as bowing to my mother's criticism. It's not, she meant well. I don't fault her for criticizing me. It's just that she didn't know what she didn't know. And she was trying to protect me, but it wasn't relative, and it wasn't relevant to my life. It would have held me back from being who I really am. And
Yeah,
I mean, I scared her regardless. So I scare other people and it's too bad.
it's too bad. That's so great. Gives me a
Yeah.
new perspective on being the parent of a 15-year-old boy. I'm like, well, maybe it's not mine to know, you know?
Listen, I don't know if you remember this author, Alvin Toffler. He wrote, um, he wrote a couple of major books, Shockwave, I think he wrote, and another book. I remember I was friends with him in New York for a while, and he was always worried about his children navigating New York City. And I said to him, listen, you don't know what they know. They've already progressed. They know what a dangerous person looks like if they're walking through Central Park. They know what a junkie looks like. They know to walk in another direction. They know things that you didn't have to know when you were growing up. And I'm not saying you should stop being concerned about them, but just know that they know they're a lot smarter streetwise than you ever needed to be. And so I'll say that to you about your 15-year-old son, He knows things that you didn't have to know.
Yeah, such good perspective. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you were talking to, well, let's say someone like me, a woman in their 40s who's, looking at this perimenopausal transition, menopause is on the horizon. And as you well know, our cultural narrative is that, I should think of myself as dried up and done at this point. Ridiculous and
Yeah.
common, and so like if you could just like thunk me on the head and have my sort of being shifted around sexuality, what would you what would you say? Like how might I even begin to explore my own sexuality newly, a couple decades in?
Well, the first thing is I want to tell you that the best sex of your life is in front of you, not behind you. That's number one. So just if you hear nothing else today, hear that. When you don't have to worry about pregnancy anymore, you will have a new freedom that you can't imagine. Like you don't have to plan, worry, have jitters, wonder if the birth control worked. You don't have to take that anymore. Like that's so much liberation. It's incredible. So that's number one. Two, the cultural narrative is the cultural narrative. I mean, in America, we've always been going towards the Pepsi generation. Like the youngsters will buy all the products and set all the trends and do whatever. But I see that that's changing, and I feel a part of that change. I think that women going through perimenopause and then menopause and like getting through all the stages of hot flashes and mood swings and all the stuff that they live through makes us stronger, makes us more vibrant. And also the one thing that I think I said this in the book and I'll say it now, when I turned 50, I stopped worrying about what anyone thought about me. I didn't hold my tongue anymore. I didn't hold back. Like I figure I'm 50. I earned the right to say whatever I want and not worry about it. like not worry about the consequences. And that made me much more powerful. It made me much more who I am now. I mean, I could say anything. So there was a comment today, like there's someone trying to scam a whole bunch of my colleagues. And like we were on a thread saying, oh, I heard from this person and they said this and this. And I said, that's interesting. I got that same note to donate money to a cause. And I wrote back to the person and said, people usually try to get to know me before they ask me for money. How rude. And I'm the only one that said that to this. And the person wrote back, I'm sorry. This person is trying to like get in every which way. And someone just wrote, how interesting. Laurie Handlers unapologetically just spoke her truth and got this person to apologize. Like, I just don't worry anymore about what people think of me. It's none of my business. You know that expression. What people think of me is none of my business. What do I think of me? And that came during that menopausal time. And I say to people, don't wait till you're 50 to speak your truth. Like, don't wait as long as I waited. It's such a waste of time to worry about what other people think. And there is always support out there. It just means that you might have to dig a little bit more, but there's always someone out there that you can find who can commiserate. And especially with all the social networks that we have, social media might be a real pain in the butt, but you can find like-minded people very quickly. They don't have to live around the corner. They can just be around the corner on your phone.
And what do you have to say to these women around the benefit of discovering, learning about, and owning their own sexuality, right? I mean, this whole thing is about sexual desire. And I think
Yeah.
so many women still relate to their sexuality as being for someone else. And it's one of the things that I really love about what you embody. It's like, I'm sexy for me. I think about the number of people that I said, like, this woman's my hero. This is who I'm going to be when I grow up. And I pull up pictures of your website. I'm like, look at her. She's 77 and she's smoking hot in a red mini dress. Like, I want to be that. And so, like how might you help somebody see the benefit and the power of owning their sexuality?
Well, they could come to class or they could read my books. I mean, either or both. If they don't take their own sexuality into their own hands, into their own possession, then I'm sorry for them. I'm not, it's my body is mine. It's not someone else's. I get to say what happens to it and with it. I get to open myself and surrender to where I want to surrender. And I don't where I don't want to, but I have to get what I like and what I want first. Like, I didn't also know that my sexuality was mine until I did. And when I did, I realized, first of all, it's far more powerful than anything I was ever told. Uh, Running sexual energy and coursing it through my body on a regular basis gives me all the oxytocin, endorphins, dopamine that I need, and it's mine. And then what I choose to do with it is my choice, but I need to touch myself. I need to get in touch with what I like, what I want, and then I get to state it. Like if I'm with a partner, which I'm married now, so I have a partner, but the first time we were ever together, I said to him, we're going to make a bubble and we're going to state desires, fears, and boundaries and have a safer sex conversation. And he was like, we're going to what? And I said, we're going to make this thing a bubble. We're going to make a physical bubble around ourselves. And then inside of that sacred space, we're going to have a conversation. And I said, just humor me. If you think this is weird, that's all right with me. So we did that. And then he was astounded. Like he said to me, we have to do this every time. And so every time we make love, we make a bubble and we say our desires, fears, and boundaries for each occurrence because every time is different. And so I get to say what I want. And I have to say, I wasn't that skilled at it. Like I was taught not to be direct about certain things. I was, and so it's even a little still shameful to say, I want to have an experience of restraint. I want to have an experience where you ravish me and just take me over. It's hard to even mouth those things because I was brought up to not say any of that. And the more I claim that, the more satisfied I am. The more I claim that, the more powerful I am. The more I claim that, the more I get what I want. Women have said to me for years and years and years, panels of women would say, I'd say, what men want to know what you want. What do you want? And they'd say, we just want them to slow down, slower, go slower, much slower. And then I would be having men's panel, and they would say, we want to know what women want. And I would say, women say to slow down. Now I know that it's biologically we're built differently, and it's a cosmic joke. It takes men 1 to 3 minutes to be fully aroused and want direct touch on the head of their penis. It takes women up to 40 minutes to be aroused enough to want direct contact on their clitoris. Now, who built women and men like that? I didn't. And I didn't even know that when we're growing up, and the sex ed we should have had should have told us that we're built differently and that when men feel pleasure, they speed up. And when women feel pleasure, they want it to last and they want it to go slower, 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 slower. And someone should have told each other. But, and they still don't know that. I say to men in my classes, if you're going slow right now, you should probably go slower. If you think you're going slow, you should probably go slower. You don't know what slow is. And women don't say, they just tolerate. I'm talking about straight people now. Like I don't know about in same-sex relationships, probably they still argue over these things, like who's speeding up, who's not speeding up. But who knew all this? There's a lot about that biological stuff. Here's another one. Women complain in my life, they've complained, oh, he just wants to have sex with me. He just wants to get laid. He's just trying to get in my pants. And it turns out um, that men need sex to feel close, and women need to feel close in order to have sex. So it's like, so if we know this about each other, we can actually have a conversation about it and make it workable. But if we don't know this, if we're flying blind, which mostly we've been flying blind in our lives, how do you talk about that with somebody, especially someone new?
So your format, right, is BDSMT, right? And I'm guessing into your marriage, you don't need the T anymore, but can you break that down for
Yeah,
people?
it's actually R. Well, so
Oh,
when you meet someone new, it's RBDSMT. If I meet someone new, I would just share my relationship status. Am I in a relationship? If I had sex with you or got close with you, who else would need to know? So where am I at? Am I single? Am I married? Am I in open relating? Am I in monogamous relation? Am I monogamish? Whatever it is. R, that's relationship. B, what are my boundaries? You might not do it in this order, by the way, it's just to remember it. B, what are my boundaries? Well, I'm just meeting you for the first time, so I'd be happy to have a walk with you holding hands. I'd be happy to maybe sit in the tantric position, yab yum with you, but I wouldn't want to have naked, penetrative sex with you on the first time we're together. So that might be my boundary. RBD. D, desires. What is my desire? Well, I desire to get to know you. I desire to get close with you. I'm attracted to you. I might want to slow dance. I I I like to spend some time with you and see if my chemical attraction also is like sapiosexual and other things like or can we connect? Desires. Fears. No, wait. RBD, fears isn't in this one. RBDS. S. What's my sexual history? When was the last time I was tested? What was I tested for? What were the test results? And also, what's my sexual preference? Gender, pronouns could be in the S. RBDSM. M, meaning, if I were to have sex with you, what would it mean to me? And what would the aftercare be? So would it mean that we're now boyfriend and girlfriend? Would it mean that we're in a committed relationship? Would it mean that we're getting married? Would it mean it was a one night stand and then I never want to see you again? Please don't call or text me. What do I want for aftercare? I'd like a text in the morning. I'd like a call in the morning. I'd like you to check in with me. This is what I want for meaning. And then T, I added the T, which some people are shy away from, but T is it's for trauma, but it isn't to tell all the things that ever happened to me. You know, when I was 2.5, this happened. Then when I was 3, this happened. When I was 5, this happened. 12. No, it's to say, I'm aware that I sometimes disassociate as a trauma response when I'm having sex. And if that were to happen, here's what I want you to do. Hold my hand and sit there. Don't try to talk to me. Don't pour water on me. Don't call the EMTs. Just note that sometimes I have this trauma response and this is what you need to do. So that's the acronym for a conversation to have with a relatively new person. And then Michael and I have a shorthand that we use when we're together, which is desires, fears, and boundaries. Because we know each other, when we were tested, we know about each other's trauma responses.
And still, I mean, you and Michael have been married now for over 10 years, right?
No, no, no. We've been together for just over 10 years, but we're only married a year.
Okay, okay, got it. Thank you for clarifying. And
No, we were neither of us were going to get married. I don't even know why we did. He asked me. I was shocked.
in a porta potty.
Yeah.
Right? I love that story. I love it. I'll link to another podcast if you guys want to
Yeah.
listen to that.
He was
Great.
captive. I was a captive audience.
Oh, good. And I love that you still do this every time, a shortened version of
Yeah,
it.
we do.
Yeah, that's miraculous.
Because every time we're different, like I'm in a different mood, I'm in a different space. I just had a different set of experiences. He's in a different mood, he's in a different space. So why should it always part of what costs people, I mean, we work with couples now. Part of what costs people their relationship is that they treat each other like they're the same all the time. Like you're my same commodity that I married, and now I'm going to make love to you the exact same way that I have been for the last 10 years. I would want, I just, that would be grounds for divorce, you know. So we do this to keep everything fresh.
That's great. I do
Yeah.
hear from so many women how bored they are. You know, my husband's touched me in the same three places, the same way, and I'm doing my grocery list,
Yeah.
while we're
Yeah. Yeah.
having sex, and now I'll get to send them to extraordinary lovers. So I have two more questions for you. One is
Okay.
about extraordinary lovers and what people will find and cultivate. And the other, you can choose the order that you answer them, is about, you say you address this in the book so much, but just to kind of give a primer, as you've gone through your 50s and 60s and now your 70s, how have you changed the way in which you approach sex to keep sex approachable through aging?
Okay. I think I'm gonna answer the second one first.
Okay.
I think that I have to stay on top of it. I mean, it's for me, it's a primary need, it's primary desire, and I have to stay on top of it. Like I can't let myself succumb to the cultural narrative that a few wrinkles like change everything or a few age spots change everything. Like I have to maybe I have to have the lights a little dimmer, but I need to keep replenishing myself with my own sexual energy and my desire, and then approach my husband like that. My husband and I believe that seduction is a team sport. It's not just one who always seduces the other. It has to be both. And we have some really cool games and rituals that we play. I mean, there's so many things that are different about our sex life than and our romantic life than others. I remember our first Valentine's Day. He goes, "Oh, I hate Valentine's Day." I go, "I love Valentine's Day." "Oh, please don't make me be that guy." I went, "What guy?" He said, "The guy who's frowning coming out of the store with the heart-shaped box of chocolates and the roses in his hand, and he has a huge frown on his face. He's just doing it because he has to." So I say to him, "Okay, great, let's create a ritual. What do you want for Valentine's Day?" He says, "I want 100 candles in a room. I want it to be." So we created something. It requires communication. I said, "Come on, I love it. We have to celebrate it. What do you want? Tell me what you want and we'll do it." So we did it. We created it. So I think, I just think that's really part of it. And then to keep it exciting, we have a lot of other things that we teach couples. We say that you shouldn't sleep in the same room because you neutralize your pheromones if you sleep in the same room. You should sleep in separate rooms, separate beds. Pheromones get lost in the sheets. So there are things like that we tell people and that we teach.
There's really a
Um,
mutual commitment to the erotic connection, right?
yeah, you
You guys
have to
are
have, yes, 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 yes. You have to have that. And look, he did a survey, I don't know how long ago. He did a survey of 100 men and women, and he asked them on a 1 to 10 scale, what percentage of your sex life has been a 10? And men said about 30% of the time. And then women said about 2% of the time. And he said, so one, men are not doing as well as they think they're doing. And someone's not telling the truth.
yeah.
And so that's when we set out. That's one of the reasons that we set out to to work with couples, because we realize that like women aren't telling the truth. They're afraid if they tell men, their partners, the truth about the fact that this lovemaking wasn't that good. um, Men will fall on the floor. Like their egos are so weak. And really, it's doing them a disservice to fake orgasms and to do those things. Like they just don't get the feedback about what could make them a great lover. So we've committed a lot of our life to this extraordinary lover thing because basically I'm combating Walt Disney all the time. I'm combating the fact that we all believe that we're going to live happily ever after if we just find the right person. If the prince finds us, we're going to live happily ever after and we're going to ride off into the sunset with no skills. We learned algebra, we learned geometry, we learned earth science, we learned language arts, we learned a foreign language, we learned all this stuff. No, no lesson ever prepared us to communicate, "I love you," to the person that I am in love with, who might be the most important thing in my life. We got nothing. Algebra doesn't work. Geometry doesn't work. And we don't have anything. We were ill prepared. One, we should have learned about sex in seventh grade, real sex. And two, we should have learned somewhere in all those studies and those degrees that when we find someone that we love, or someone's, because some people find more than one, that we should have a whole vocabulary and a whole way to deal with what could come up, which the whole kitchen sink comes up. I mean, and people don't know how to deal with it. All they know is what they saw their parents do, which didn't work for the most part either. Or they saw something in the movies. I always think of that Danny DeVito movie with, I can't remember, it was the War of the Roses. And and every rock and roll song that I ever danced to and knew and memorized the words to was a codependent relationship. There's not one healthy portrayal in the songs, in the culture, in the anything that helps us to navigate. I love you and I want to stay with you forever. And this is what we're going to need to do to make it vital and alive. And so couples lose it and then they get ashamed that they need help. And they do need help. They just need so much help.
And so
So that's,
extraordinary lovers. I haven't done that one yet. It's on my list, hopefully in May.
oh,
Um,
great.
but
I would
you
love that
teach.
if you came to the one in Denver, that would be so great. Yeah.
It's like I'm in Montana. It's in Boulder. I'm like, that's a hop, skip, and a jump.
Hmm.
Perfect. Um, you teach then a lot of that.
Yeah. We do. We look at it from three perspectives: self-love, love of the other, love that manifests. Those are like the three pillars. And then we work on express love that expresses to self and to the other. We work on fearless communication, being able to say anything and not build resentment, not be held to a score or to you said this to me and I'm, no. We teach people how to really say the things and get it complete, the thing, whatever the thing is, or the things. And then we also teach people, and we teach rituals. We teach rituals in how to express these things to each other safely and to know how much time to set aside to do this. And then we also teach uh, exquisite touch. We don't think that just what I said to you about the 40-minute, 1 minute thing, we don't think that anyone's ever been taught how to touch each other genitally and each other's bodies in a way that makes us feel open and wanting to explore instead of, oh, I'm glad that's over with and now I can go back to whatever.
Yeah. That's
It's,
fantastic because it's so needed. In my conversation with we talked about like how do people come back together when they've, sort of drifted sexually. And he talked about this idea of like plaque, like a relational plaque. And he's like, couples
yeah,
need to go to the dentist, and like scrape the plaque because you can't work on sexual connection on top of all this resentment and history and like
you
what's
can't,
not said.
you can't.
And another couple that I spoke to said something similar, like withholding is the end of sexual desire.
Yes. And when people say, let's go to couples therapy, usually it's the end. Usually they've waited so long that a couples therapist, and plus because it's not embodied, it's all talk stuff, they don't get through it. They don't get to like actually deal with it. And of course, ours is very embodied. Yeah, we think that Extraordinary Lovers and Tantra meets BDSM go really well together. And the three of us have taught it together in various modalities. They brought us to Italy once to do Tantra meets BDSM and Extraordinary Lovers in shorter pieces together. So we're
Lori, you have a
definitely.
singles version.
Oh
So,
yeah, we're just starting. So when we first started, we put them all together. When we first started this course in 2019, we did it in St. Pete, Florida, and we had singles and couples. And then we did it again in Honduras. We had a week-long version and we had singles and couples. A couple of times we did it. Actually, some singles hooked up and now are living together and being together because they met in the course. But a lot of couples were threatened by having these singles around. So we just focused on couples. But so many singles want to learn if I meet the right person, if I meet someone with real potential, how do I talk to them so I don't screw it up in the first date or the second date? So we're going to do a singles version for how to get this under your belt so that if you do meet someone that you really want to be with, or you think you do anyway, you can test it out and see if the person receives you really, really well.
Yeah, that's
You know,
great.
yeah.
How does, like again, I work with, probably 19 women for every man that I work with. And so I get a lot more of the female perspective. And so it has me be curious because we talked earlier, like women aren't being honest about their satisfaction because there's so much worry about how will he hear it? I don't want to crush him. I love him. How does somebody invite their partner into either this work or more intentional relating? Like from reading your story, it seems to me, it could be wrong, but it seems to me that you and Michael kind of came together on a similar enough page.
Yeah, we did.
What happens when one person is like, "Oh, sexuality, let's go," and her partner's not quite there yet?
So yeah, it's a tough one. My first question to Michael after we met was, what have you spent money on in terms of personal growth? Like if he didn't spend money on anything in personal growth, he wasn't my person. Um, and he just listed a litany of things, and I was like, oh my God, this guy is a contender. Um, I often think that couples grow differently, and people one is more open to personal growth and transformation than the other. Usually for women, I tell them to tell their husbands or their partners that everything that they do in the arena of sacred sexuality and couples work will enhance other things. Like I once told a guy that his golf game would get better if he came and did tantra with his new wife, and his golf game did get better because when you take tantra, like your presence skills and your intentionality skills get better because you're embodying them, not just thinking about them. So for men, I usually tell them that something in their life will improve that they value, whether it's golf or I don't know, um, tennis. Their games get better because their body's involved in a whole new way with their creative life force. If women don't want to go, um, there's probably some shame factor there, and I'm not really sure what to say, except to say like, everything will improve, not just our sex life, like our communication will improve, everything will improve. And I would tell a man to say, to her, let's take this risk together. I want to do it with you. Like I think those words would work for a woman. Um, it's so hard. It's one thing to get individuals to a course. It's easy. My courses fill up, they're easy. Like boom, they're full. Ohms in my course is full, boom. But when you have a couple involved, it's much more difficult. One wants to do it and the other doesn't. And underlying it all is shame, as far as I'm concerned. Like when I've looked really deep, what is preventing someone from coming? They are ashamed. They're ashamed that their upbringing, their skill, their whatever they don't already have this. They don't already know it because they are supposed to know how to do happily ever after. Of course they are. Walt Disney said so. Cinderella's guy came and he couldn't even find the shoe, the foot with the shoe. He couldn't even find the other thing. But we all have this romantic notion that it's going to all work out. If I just love enough, my love will help this person overcome whatever it is. Well, that is wrong. It takes skill, just like algebra and geometry, just like, medicine or science or whatever. We go to school for that, and we don't go to school for relating.
Yeah.
We don't.
Oh, I love hearing you say this. I actually literally said to the patient that I saw before we did this interview, Um, one of the few men that I work with, and I literally said to him, we live in a world where we're told that love is enough for relationships to work, and I don't believe it.
It's not.
Love
It's not.
helps, but we need a skill set. We need a very specific skill set, hopefully plus love, right? That allows for satisfaction in the long term. So I'm thrilled.
We need it. We're lacking it and we need it. And I'm trying to provide a solution. Michael and I are working diligently trying to provide that. And it's not easy because it's hard to get couples.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Do you have time for one more question?
I don't.
You don't? Okay. Then,
I
well,
wish I did.
that's okay. It's okay.
Okay.
We're going to point people towards your books, your podcast. You and Michael do a podcast, and to Extraordinary Lovers. I'll link it all. And Lori, thank you for
Thank
sharing
you
your
so
wisdom,
much.
your story, yourself, and thank you for your commitment to this exploration. Really grateful.
Thank you, Dawn. I appreciate you so much for having me as a guest. Thank you.